Welcome to this explainer on power, profit, and people. Today we're exploring that fascinating tightrope leaders have to walk between wielding their power and maintaining ethical responsibility. So let's just dive right into what actually happens when leaders are totally squeezed for results.
We've probably all felt that sinking feeling when a boss clearly only cares about the bottom line, right? Profit completely eclipses people. It's an incredibly common scenario, unfortunately. Today, we're going to track exactly how unchecked power and immense pressure literally trickle down from the boardroom all the way to the factory floor. Because when financial outcomes are the only thing that matters, the human element, well, it's usually the very first casualty. We're going to look at the exact mechanisms of how this happens and, more importantly, how to actually prevent it.
But to start off, we really have to establish what true leadership actually looks like in the first place. Fundamentally, it's about empowering a team to achieve together rather than just, shouting demands from a corner office. According to the core organizational behavior text we're looking at, effective leaders influence performance by fostering trust, engagement, and collaboration. It's definitely not about dictating terms. It's about creating an environment where shared goals are reached through mutual respect.
And when you think about it, power in the workplace really comes from a few distinct sources. You've got expertise power, which comes from your specialized knowledge. There's positional power, literally just derived from your job title. Reward power, which is your ability to hand out bonuses or perks. And finally, personal influence, which is all about your natural charisma and relationship building skills. Now, power itself isn't inherently good or bad. It's just a tool. It can be used ethically to build trust or destructively to force compliance.
What's super interesting is the stark contrast in how these play out. Research highlights that leaning purely on your job title or your ability to hand out bonuses, which we call hard power, really only buys you temporary obedience. It might get your short-term compliance, sure, but soft power? That's rooted in your character and your expertise, and that is what earns lasting, trust-based commitment. Honestly, in today's highly collaborative workplaces, making that transition toward relational influence is absolutely critical for sustainable performance.
But things get incredibly dark when executives adopt what's known as a bottom-line mentality. This is a chilling mindset where financial targets completely overwrite every other human or ethical consideration. I mean, the definition from Wolf's 1988 research is really striking. It's about focusing on whatever is worth paying attention to while everything else is completely discarded. When top management obsesses over the bottom line to this degree, things like fairness, integrity, and employee well-being, they are literally tossed right out the window.
We can actually map out exactly how this happens using Malik's 2022 research on Pakistani textile organizations. The conceptual framework here shows that when top management has this extreme bottom-line mentality, it directly dictates the nature of the tasks assigned. If those tasks are incredibly difficult and the pressure is sky-high, it leads straight to a bad attitude from the supervisor. Because of this top-down financial squeeze, middle managers basically end up bypassing standard operating procedures entirely. They completely ignore ethical leadership just to get the job done. Hearing directly from the textile workers themselves really grounds this academic theory in a pretty gritty reality. In this kind of labor-intensive industry, employees noted that when their actual survival is tied to completing these brutally difficult tasks, they feel like they have absolutely no choice but to cut ethical corners. The cultural norm, combined with the intense fear of what happens if they fail, means they just put their heads down and follow orders. It effectively strips them of their agency and their moral compass at work. So, the crucial point to take away from this is the powerful trickle-down effect of toxicity. It demonstrates how just one bad boss at the top can spread their reach and infect the entire middle management layer. Think about it. If the head of the department is modeling abusive, corner-cutting behavior just to hit target numbers, the middle managers observe that. Then they turn around and replicate it with their own subordinates. It is literally a textbook example of social learning theory gone terribly wrong.
The data really shows that it all comes down to the nature of the task itself. According to the study, nearly 90% of the participants highlighted this crazy dichotomy. On one hand, flexible goals allow for ethical behavior and a good supervisor attitude. But on the other hand, immense time-crunched pressure acts like a heavy anvil. It crushes any ethical intentions and leads straight to managerial abuse. It just proves that a leader's commitment to ethics is deeply tested and often completely fails when the pressure dial is turned all the way up.
And this intense pressure cooker environment triggers something researchers call social undermining. It's a really desperate workplace trap. Workers are feeling this extreme squeeze of bottom-line demands, and so they start tearing each other down. Instead of cooperating, they compete ruthlessly. They withhold vital information, and they'll even sabotage their own peers just to survive the day. Essentially, when a leader creates a zero-sum game, the entire team structure effectively cannibalizes itself.
But here's the thing. Followers are incredibly perceptive. Their trust in a leader hinges almost entirely on a few everyday realities. The leader's personality, how standard operating procedures are perceived, the overall work pressure, and the presence of abusive behavior. Researchers actually found that a leader's core personality matters way more than the official paperwork on a clipboard. If a leader has a good personality and doesn't resort to abuse, employees naturally assume the rules are being followed ethically, even if things are a bit chaotic. Trust is just intensely personal. So how in the world do we fix this? Well, a 2023 study by Wang, looking at Chinese manufacturing, hands us what might be the ultimate antidote to the bottom line trap. It all starts with empowering leadership. When leaders choose to empower rather than demand, and when they possess emotional stability, which is a huge factor here, it positively drives conflict management and boosts employee performance. And all of that ultimately leads to true organizational sustainability. By deliberately adopting these steps, a manager steps up as a true moral role model. Empowering leadership fosters this incredible sense of psychological ownership among workers. When people actually feel supported, conflicts are managed constructively instead of spiraling into that toxic social undermining we talked about. And the data absolutely confirms it. Treating people well genuinely boosts long-term performance and ensures the organization's sustainability. You really don't have to choose between people and profit. Empowering your people is what actually drives sustainable profit. Now, workplace conflicts, they are totally inevitable. We all know that. But an ethical leader has a whole chest of tools to choose from when handling them, whether it's avoidance, accommodation, compromise, or the gold standard, collaboration. A true leader uses these strategies carefully to restore trust. They don't just resort to using their positional power to force an outcome. It's all about navigating the tension without breaking the team apart. So I want to leave you with this final, vital thought to ponder about your own career. We've seen how easily intense top-down pressure can completely erode ethical standards and foster abusive environments. When that ultimate squeeze comes down from above, and it will, what kind of leader are you going to choose to be? Will you pass that toxicity down the chain just for a short-term win? Or will you use soft power, empowering leadership, and emotional stability to actually protect your people? The choice is entirely yours.